back to the question. Back to the question. If I were to tell you actually, my craziest adventure of all time, we would be here till tomorrow, because it was my first time going to Tokyo, Japan, and it was going to Tokyo is an adventure in and unto itself. But what made it a real adventure was the fact that I only brought $500 because I thought that would be enough for 5 weeks. Tokyo. And so I spent it like in the first 2 days. No exaggeration. This was a long time ago, mind you. $500 went a lot further. I fell off my lady shoes. I really am wearing lady shoes. Check these out. Woohoo! They're for men. So, I was there and I went through the $500 in like the first 2 days. And then I just prostituted myself for the rest of the time that I was there. Not literally. Not literally, but I spent the better part of the next 5 weeks as I suppose a Cuban gigolo in Tokyo, which should be a song, but it isn't yet. But no, really, like I met a very, very lovely young lady, and she said, "Can I carry you?" And I said, "No, you can't." And she said, "Well, why come?" And I said, "Because I don't have a phone." And she said, "Why do you not have a phone?" And I said, "Because I don't have anywhere to live." She said, "You can live with me." I had that conversation like 8 times. I'm not kidding. So I was like, "Okay, great," and I moved in, and then things didn't work out so well. So I moved out. And then I met someone else and had that same exact conversation. I moved in with her. And that's how I kind of went through my trip in Japan, my very first trip in Japan. Don't do this, kids. This is how you get syphilis. So, it ends. I would love nothing more than to tell you the entire story with all the details, because you'd never believe it. You would literally never believe it. But it ends. The story ends with me opening up a closet and finding the first girl that I met in Japan on the floor, curled up in the fecal position. It was Japan. It was the fetal position. Curled up in the fetal position. And I'm like, oh my God, why is the first girl that I've met in Japan dead in my closet? And I poked her a couple times, and it turns out she wasn't dead. She was hiding her face, and she said, "Don't look at me, I am a monster." And her face had been completely changed. And I'll leave it at that. Aww. She no longer had the same face. This is a true story. I do not do drugs. This is a true story. That would probably be, to this day, still like the craziest adventure that I ever had. It was a 5-week long. Cut it off! Shut the fuck up! It was the craziest 5 weeks of my entire life, probably. And yet, I don't think it inspired any songs directly, although maybe All Women Are Crazy indirectly owes something to that. So, you know, the crazy thing is, I'm not entirely certain that... I told you it was going to take half an hour.
I'm sorry.
No, why are you sorry?
I didn't ask a long question.
No, if you asked a shitty question, it might have been over quicker. Songs... I think that I probably write more songs when I'm in a lot of pain. And I think that's probably true of a lot of musicians. You write a lot of songs when you're in a lot of pain because you're like desperate for a way to work that out. And more often than not, if you're an artist, you're going to get that out through your art. So, like my first album, my second album, my third album, which was a breakup album. Boohoo's a breakup album. I mean, I would like literally... The first album, I was like going back and forth with this woman who eventually became the mother of my child. And there's some pretty intense songs on The Devil's Brisk. And then Almost Human, we started to break up, and I was like, ah! And that album, I think, is fantastic, because it's like, there's a lot of pain in that album. And then Boohoo's a breakup album, and it's like, really, you just have to be prepared to sit down and go, and then things, I guess, started turning around, and I made Ookie Spooky. And by Ookie Spooky, like, you know, I wasn't really racked with a tremendous amount of pain. I was dating someone, we were very happy together at the time. And subsequently, I was like, what should I make an album about? And I don't know what that means. I think means like, you, I will cut you. It's like samurai slang. I saw it in a movie once, just like everybody else here. Where was I? So I made an album. I was like, you know what, I want this album, because also at that point, people were very confused about what I do musically. You know, they would say like, hey, what kind of music do you make? And I'd go, I don't know. And I want to say like, the songs are dark, but they're funny. But then there are the ones that are really sad. And I just honestly could never tell anybody what it was that I did. So when Ookie Spooky rolled around, I was like, I'm going to make an album where I can like come up with one sentence that explains the album. It'll be easier to sell that way. It'll be easier to market that way. So Ookie Spooky is like, has no sad songs. It's an album, it's a funny album. It's an album of up-tempo songs about scary things. Like Day of the Dead is on there, and Land of the Dead is on there, and Dead is on there. Probably other songs with the word dead. You know, and it's almost like a mariachi jazz band, you know, playing songs about dead shit. And so that's what that was. But in order for it to not have any sad songs, I had to make an album of all sad songs, and that was Then and Again. And I got that out of the way. Where's this answer going? So, in recent history, you know, I made To the Bottom of the Sea, which was my first indie album. And it's like a sort of steampunky sea shanty kind of thing. And it's very, very much based in fantasy. And I think this is where I'm going with this answer, is that a lot of those songs are very much based in fantasy. Because I wasn't in excruciating pain, so maybe I didn't have a tremendous amount to write about from my own life, or from my own adventures. And so that album is like, and I think it's a beautiful album and well constructed, but it's based mostly in fantasy. And then I made Riding a Black Unicorn, I'm skipping some maybe, but I made Riding a Black Unicorn, which is also very much based in fantasy, with the exception of a couple songs. And then I made Bitrexual, which is completely based on Star Trek and Star Wars, and what's that other thing? Doctor Who. But the album I'm working on now is called Raised by Bats, and I wrote this album when I was 17. Not all of it, but a lot of the songs I wrote when I was 17, 18, 19. And it's really kind of like the album I always wanted to make, but didn't know how back then. So I guess the answer to your question, now that I've used up half an hour, is that that Tokyo adventure was easily, in my personal life, the craziest 5 weeks of my entire life. It had a lot to do with the fact that there was no telling what would happen next. There really wasn't. I could be homeless, I could have nothing to eat, or I could find myself eating at a 5-star restaurant in Tokyo with a gorgeous woman who was picking up the tab. Like, there was no way of knowing what or, you know, a woman that I was dating could appear a month later in a closet with her face completely changed.
I need you to write a book about that.
So there was so much, and when I say drama, I don't mean it in the bad way. There was so much drama. You know, there was high drama from moment to moment, what could happen. And that hasn't been true in my life in a while. Like, my life has gotten very kind of predictable, honestly, until very, very recently. Now my life is getting I'm becoming more self-destructive so as to make my life more unpredictable, so that maybe I can get back to that place where I used to be, where I wrote songs because life was so extreme. Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry, you know what? You're next. But she, I went like this. So, well, but now that's rude, isn't it?
No, that's fine.
Mine's very
You're a
good.
gentleman. Okay, that's what I always
Remember
say.
me?
What's that?
Do you remember me?
Do I remember? You know, your face looks really, really familiar, but your hair was not purple when I saw you
I was
left.
somebody else.
You were somebody else. Oh my God, you're that Japanese girl from the closet. I remember your face, but you look different. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
You weren't at Dragon Con.
I
No,
was at this con just
you were
yesterday.
this con. Okay, you'll have to remind me.
I was the princess who had to leave early.
Oh, who came up to the stage for a hug?
But, sorry about that.
No worries.
But yeah.
Well, I'm glad
hi.
you're back.
Yeah.
That was quick.
Yeah.
All right, so did you produce for any other cartoon shows?
Have I written, I think, have I made songs for any other cartoon shows?
Yeah.
The answer is sadly no. I really wish the answer was yes, because I'll tell you something about making shows for television. It pays really well. Really well. Yeah, doing songs for the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy is like the gift that keeps on giving. Because, I was paid to do it back in 2000. I mean, it's like really going back. I actually was kind of shocked when I recently realized how long ago I did those songs. I think I met Maxwell Adams in like 2000 or 2001.
Such a good show.
And he was I was doing a show at Bar Sinister, which is a club in LA, and he walked up to me afterwards. I remember him being 8 feet tall. I don't know why. Younger than I am. But I remember him being 8 feet tall. And he was wearing, this part I know is true, he was wearing a red zoot suit. Like a flaming red zoot suit and a big red bolero hat. And I remember his hair being bleached white. He tells me it wasn't, but I remember that. And excuse me while I refresh my memory. And you were eating a chihuahua from space. So he came up to me and he said, "Hey, great show. I'm a big fan. I'd really like to commission you to write a song for my show." He just said my show. And I'm thinking, I'm in LA. Every asshole here thinks they have a show. And I was like, yeah, all right, kid, sure. I was like, yeah, just email me. He's like, no, seriously, I really want you to write a song. I said, well, what's the name of your show? He said, Grim and Evil. Because back then, that's what the show was called. And I said, oh, well, you're in luck, because I have a song called When You're Evil, and you can just use that. See you later. And I'm walking away. He's like, no, I really, I want you to write a song specifically for my show. And I said, well, what channel is your show on? He said, Cartoon Network. I said, well, I'll check it out. He said, well, it's not on yet. I'm like, because it doesn't exist. That was such a dick. And I just gave him my email. I was like, look, just email me and we'll talk about it. And he did. Not only did he email me, but he sent me, and this just goes to show how long ago this was, he sent me 4 VHS tapes. And he was like, oh, here's like the first 4 episodes. And I remember getting the package.
Emailed you VHS tapes.
Yeah, well, I mean, Cartoon Network did.
Emailed
I'm
you.
sorry. and that's where we are now. Put it in the mail, why would you do that? So yeah, he mailed me 4 VHS tapes. And Orville Dedenbacher will be having a blast right now. I have any idea who that is. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's for real. Like, I got this package from Cartoon Network. And so we talked, I called him and I said, well, all right, what do you want the song to be about? And he was like, evil meteor comes down and eats people's brains. And I said, okay, I can do that. And I said, how am I being paid for this? Like, what does this pay? And he said, well, you're going to be paid by the minute, by how long the song is. And I said, how long can this song be? And he said, it can be no longer than 5 minutes. I said, this song is going to be 5 minutes long. Not like a second less. And so I wrote this song, which, by the way, is why there's so much vamping in the song. And vamping is when you kind of not really doing much. You're just sort of killing time. So that's why the song goes like... Well, hello, little boy, don't be shy. Step right up, I'm a reasonable guy. Don't be frightened by the Well, I'm just shy and scared of this place. I fish out of water from outer space. You can see that the trip has left me tired and drained. So why don't you be a pal? And you bring me some grains. Right now. I'm getting paid right now. Go down to your neighbor's place. See the dog's expression on his face. You'll be doing him a favor if you brought him to me. He ain't using his brain, he's just watching TV. Cartoon Network, probably. Go down to Mr. McGee's. He hasn't had a thought since 43. His brain is a portrait of atrophy. He ain't using it, why not give it to me? Brains. I won't lie, I'll leave the brains till the zombified. Should they might think it's the rain, they will give it a thought to relieve their brains. 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 It's okay, it's not a matter if it isn't gray. And